out-of-state cannabis companies getting a fast lane in New York State's legalized cannabis market? While New York cannabis officials are busily trying to onboard social equity applicants for its various license categories, the 10 registered organizations originally licensed for medical cannabis are quietly and deliberately making plans for its participation in the adult use market in New York. They are all well-funded, most are publicly traded, and several have already started building huge grow facilities supported by local tax incentives. Yet in 9 months of public meetings by the Cannabis Control Board, not once has there been a discussion of how these cannabis industry giants will enter the market and how they will support the social equity mission outlined in New York's cannabis legislation. Join us as we unpack the facts and ask the pertinent questions on Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, and live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. All right, we're coming in hot.
I see this. NightWatchman, who knew you had these skills? I didn't know. Absolutely. So absolutely. So the discussion, we're going to be talking about cannabis, correct?
Cannabis in New York, cannabis in the country, because the issue of social equity in cannabis is not just a New York problem. There hasn't been a successful social equity plan in cannabis yet in the United States, and we're hoping that New York State might have a chance at getting one in.
Nice. So when you talk about around the country, I heard that you might even have some guests from Chi-Town. Is that correct?
You got it. So should we bring
them out? Bring them out.
All right. So from True Social Equity in Cannabis, we have Anna Rose and Vi Herring.
Yay! Welcome. Welcome.
All right. Oh, nice. and Anna's cat.
Yes. Loving it.
Trying to get some breakfast.
Okay. Very nice. So what else we got here, NightWatchman?
Okay, and here from New York State, from the Bronx and Yonkers, we have from TKSX Sensei.
All right.
We got Matt Kachmar and the Kolector.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for having us, guys.
Gentlemen,
welcome.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you being here. So
NightWatchman, why don't you fire off some stuff while I cultivate my mind around this?
All right. So we're going to just there's been a lot of activity in New York around these registered organizations. They originally came in as medical cannabis licensees, and over that time, they've been acquired by bigger companies. So we want to give people a little bit of breakdown of who's here, what are they calling themselves now, so that we have a little bit of a roadmap of who's here and what's going on. Let's start with a brief history of cannabis legalization in New York State. So in 2014, the Compassionate Care Act was passed, legalizing medical cannabis in New York State. And as a result, 5 licenses were granted to 5 registered organizations, or ROs: PharmaCann, Vario, Columbia Care, Bloomfield Industries, which was later acquired by MedMen, and Etain. In 2017, 5 more licenses were granted to Valley Agriceuticals, Fiorello Pharmaceuticals, Palliatech, Sativa, and New York Cannabis, coming to a total of 10 companies licensed to legally sell medical cannabis in New York State. And as a result of this, a feeding frenzy was started amongst the big cannabis companies nationwide to acquire these ROs in anticipation of the huge expected market in New York for both medical and adult use cannabis. Now, in March of 2021, MRTA, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, was signed into law that legalized adult use cannabis finally in New York State. And by 2022, All 10 of those ROs have been acquired or merged into larger entities. So the new names are now Ianthus, Ascend Wellness, Canopy Growth, Cresco Labs, Curaleaf, Green Thumb, RIV Capital, Verano. Columbia Care is still technically a separate company, but they've been agreed to be acquired by Cresco Labs. And then PharmaCann is merging with a company called LiveWell. And so 9 companies now control these 10 licenses. These 9 companies have a total market value of over $11 billion combined. And all of these changes in ownership were approved by New York State. And we want to come back and talk about that a little bit. So let's talk specifics. Let's start with Green Thumb Industries, who, according to Forbes, broke ground on a $150 million facility in Warwick, New York in September 21 on former prison grounds. And so the optics on this in light of social equity are bad, but I think what's more troubling is how an out-of-state company was able to come into New York, receive millions of dollars in local tax incentives and local labor agreements, and secure this property without really any discussion of social equity participation. They acquired Fiorello Pharmaceuticals in 2019, and so a lot of this occurred under the previous administration. And again, we're talking about a 200,000 square foot grow facility, which is quite large. This company is based in Chicago, named as one of Chicago's cannabis cartel, and their CEO, Ben Kovler, is heir to the Jim Beam distillery fortune. They trade in the market at a $2.2 billion value company. Another company coming out of Chicago is called Verano Holdings, roughly also about a $2 billion company. They were originally licensed as Vario Health, one of the first 5 licenses, and they have a facility right now, a 64,000 square foot facility in Johnston, New York, that's expanding to 324,000. And yet another company out of Chicago, Cresco Labs, which it now controls 2 of the 10 licenses. They acquired Valley Agroceuticals in 2019, and in this year, 2022, they made an agreement to acquire Columbia Care, and that's slated to close by the 4th quarter of this year. And so they have a market capitalization of $656 million. Columbia Care also trades at $583 million. So together, that's over a $1.1 billion corporation. And they're building a 380,000 square foot facility in the town of Wawarsung in Ulster County. Now let's talk about Curaleaf, formerly known as Paleotech, a Massachusetts company that trades on the Canadian Stock Exchange. Their history is interesting. Now, Curaleaf does actually have a social equity partnership with B Noble Inc. B Noble is a collaboration between Bernard Noble, a gentleman who was sentenced in Louisiana for 13 years for 2 joints worth of flour, and Fab Five Freddy, hip-hop pioneer, director of the Grass is Greener documentary on cannabis in America. And so we'll keep an eye on them. They seem to actually be doing something social media related, but they've also made it clear that they want to ultimately be, he said the Frito-Lay, he's also in another article said that he wants to be the Starbucks of cannabis. So keep an eye on Curaleaf. Canopy Growth is another huge company, Canadian company. Their market capitalization is almost $1 billion. They're 38% owned by Constellation Brands, which is the largest beer and wine importer in the U.S. And it looks like the Constellation board members are the ones who are really running the ship now. They ousted the founder and CEO Bruce Linton in 2019 after disappointing earnings. They came into New York both by acquiring Acreage Holdings, which had the New York Canna license, but they also had a license to do a hemp growing operation that they did that separately. An interesting note on their social equity side is that they recently dissolved their social impact and advocacy team amidst cost-cutting measures, and they also laid off their chief advocacy officer, Hillary Black, who was a legend in Canada. She actually started the first medical dispensary and really pioneered the compassionate care movement in Canada. And so them laying off not only the team, but their chief advocacy officer suggests that their commitment to social equity is flimsy. Now, RIV Capital is interesting in that they acquired Etain LLC. It was one of the first 5 ROs, and it was the only woman-owned RO, the only RO that had any semblance of social equity. They were acquired by RIV Capital this past March 2022, and basically the money behind RIV Capital is coming from Scott's Miracle Grow, the fertilizer company. And so while RIV Capital only has a market value of $74 million, Scott's Miracle Grow is a $4.45 billion corporation, and really the active money behind RIV Capital. Their advantages of these ROs is that they already have dispensaries open and selling cannabis. They have higher profit margins from vertical integration. They have better tax treatment from vertical integration. They have better access to capital. They have lobbyists. They have lawyers. They have a lot of things. And so it bears watching their moves in the market. And we said we would not only bring you the facts, unpack the facts, but also bring you the pertinent questions. So here are pertinent questions that we have for our Office of Cannabis Management and Cannabis Control Board. 1, have these ROs lived up to their commitment to provide medical cannabis to New York consumers? 2, is the OCM and CCB looking at the RO's social equity track record in other states? Are there social equity guidelines that the ROs must adhere to? And what is the correlation between the RO's capacity to build these huge facilities versus the actual medical cannabis sales? And what has been the criteria for approving changes in ownership? So these are questions we have to the OCM, the CCB, certainly our new Chief Social Equity Officer, who has only been in the office a few weeks, and we know he is gearing and getting up to speed, but we're anticipating that he will look at these things closely and give us answers in a timely manner. So with that, I want to turn this conversation back to our panel of experts. All right, so Anna and Vi, we always catch Vi.
That's a real hustler right there. Always
yeah,
right?
A multitasker. We're all
eat on the go sometimes.
Got to, absolutely.
Sorry, y'all.
So Anna and Vi, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's been the history of some of these companies in Chicago.
They're all scams.
I mean, we talk about social equity, and they've really figured out how to make it seem like they're doing social equity by basically throwing a few $1,000s to advocacy groups, and I mean advocacy groups a little lightly, because it's a pyramid scheme. It's a scam. It's
smoking mirrors.
Corruption at its best is what it is. Corruption at its best.
You can see right through that inauthenticity of it all.
1,000%. When you were going through the interview or your explanation of the companies that were in New York, the entire time I'm listening to it and I'm just like, I cannot believe how big the monopolization has grown from the beginning. Mm-hmm. We're watching literally the American cartel being established in front of our eyes. We coined the Chicago cartel because we saw what was happening. We understood the corruption that played out. And then from there, it just progressed from every state forward, because Illinois was one of the first states that had a social equity program. And they failed. And I'll say it again, they failed. And what we're seeing are the other states adopt a failed process that isn't for any social equity person, nobody that's from the war on drugs, nobody from the legacy market. And in the midst of our eyes, because it's gone pretty much under the radar and not enough attention has been given to it, we see the American cartel being established. It's sad, it's hurtful, it's wrong, it's illegal.
And when you're talking about asking those questions to the state, a big problem that we have found is, yeah, you can ask the questions, but are there answers, or are there answers that anyone can answer? And I mean, even the regulators are dropping out like flies because they have no idea how to answer these questions, and they feel helpless too. So we have all of these regulator spots that need to be filled, and so therefore, who's actually regulating the market? And I don't think that the market needs to be regulated. I mean, look at Legacy, like that was regulated in itself. Like if you have bad product, people don't go to you. But when I'm talking about regulation, like these corporations need to have regulation because they're putting out moldy product because either they don't know any better or they don't care because they want the money.
Right.
And I side with Anna kind of about that because I don't believe in regulation. Regulation leads to over restrictions. I do believe in compliance. We have to have compliance, especially within the industry. But the industry is just nothing but corrupt, capitalistic vultures that are leaving out the very people that created the culture that want to be established in the industry. As a legacy grower and a legacy healer, it's shameful, man. Like I don't even really have the words in order to put on it because we've been going through it since the beginning, and we're watching other states adopt a broken policy, a broken system, broken effort. If you ask me, Illinois had zero effort in trying to make sure that there was a social equity. What we're seeing is the war on social equity.
And they say, they're trying to bring generational wealth to the Black and Brown community. And that in their statistics, recently 185 dispensary licenses were given out almost 3 years after they were supposed to be. And within that group, there are some Black and Brown owners. However, most of them, if not all of them, are connected to the government. They either work for the government, they have a partner that works for the government, they currently work for the government. Like it's a bunch of It's
we got you. We got you.
Language.
Yes, no worries. So, gentlemen, do tell us how did this partnership form?
Yeah, so this partnership formed. We met up on Discord on a private server. Actually, I became one of his clients. I was looking for some good cannabis at the end of the day. Ended up getting through some channels and so that these guys were based out of the Bronx and stuff.
It's hard to connect with us. So we're not on a street corner like promoting nothing like that. Like I had to have met you. We've had to have connected at some point. Like there's not a direct approach to me. You have to get through like 2 or 3 people before you can speak to me.
Nice.
So I ended up getting connected with our other partner, Ozzy. He does the verification process, right? So the verification process was picture your license, and you got to take a video you smoking a blunt or a J or something.
You have to be 21 or over, and you have to prove to us that you consume.
Yeah. Wow.
So I got in there to be able to purchase some product. I got the product. I realized how good it was. And was like, man, I was like, just looking to get into the industry myself. I'm a construction guy. I was building high rises in Manhattan, some in Lower Westchester and Yonkers, New Rochelle for a developer. I got out of that like 3.5 years ago, and I've been doing doing jujitsu ever since full time. And through Discord, I ended up meeting Kolector, and he was making announcements about having some drops for some of their flavors that they were releasing. So I said, I have a spot right here, a really nice gym that we do like a smoke and roll out of. Basically, a lot of guys get together. Jiu-jitsu and cannabis go hand in hand.
Yep.
You know, a lot of the guys are all about natural medicine at the end of the day, natural pain relief. So a lot of us go towards the plant, you know. So I offered the space up for him to make that drop. And then I'll let him tell you the rest of the story.
So I'm from the South Bronx.
We're at BX all day, baby.
I'm from Hunts Point.
All right.
From the Hunts Point section of the Bronx, Fort Apache area. I'm also a veteran. I served some time in the military, deployed overseas to Afghanistan.
Thank you for the service, brother.
Yeah.
No problem. And when I came home, I started getting onto like the VA medicine and stuff like that, the pills they were giving me, and it just wasn't working for me. I turned over to cannabis and started growing a couple plants. And within a couple months, people realized, like, damn, like locally grown product is way better than anything we've been getting. So one plant led to 2 plants, led to 4 plants, led to now I've got probably one of the biggest legacy brands in New York at the moment. Biggest brands, like recognizable brands at the moment. So when I met Matt last year, like he said, he was a customer. And the first time I met him, I pulled up in a ski mask. So where I come from, the reason for the mask is the urban culture, right? I come from the hood. So your face is like your biggest asset, right?
Yes.
No face, no case. They can't really process if I'm not telling you who I am, you know? So I pulled up like that, and he gave me the opportunity and had the conversation with me, like just some guy off the street pulling up to his gym in a freaking ski mask. And we had a couple of great conversations. And I think the first 2 or 3 times we met was just about the smoke and roll, about us coming there and doing our flower drops. And then one day he came to me with a serious conversation and was like, yo, bro, like we can scale this up. Like, I think we have a chance to do something real for the community and for New York. And I think it's important to note that if you look at all these companies that are operating right now with their BS, as Anna said, social equity programs, none of these businesses are operating in communities that are benefiting from or that have been hit hardest by the war on drugs, by cannabis.
Period.
That is absolutely true.
Upstate New York, you're employing mostly white folks. And that's just the fact of the matter. So we want to make it a point to operate in the city. I grow indoors. We have a plan to open up an indoor facility in New York and actually put social equity at the forefront. 10% of our company, our revenue at the end of the year goes back to our employees.
Nice.
So we're trying to do the opposite of all those big corporations, right? Where we're fortunate enough through some channels and that I had through real estate and construction and friends through here at Jiu-Jitsu that we were able to get some privately held funds behind us, right? Enough so that we're looking at a 110,000 square foot facility right in Mount Vernon, New York, right next to the Bronx, right?
Right on the border of the Bronx.
So we want to do the opposite of these companies. We want to put our investment in the urban environment, right, and employ the people who are directly affected by this at the end of the day.
Beautiful. So bottom line, I have heard a lot of discussion in terms of, we have, of course, the legal cannabis market opening up in certain states, right? But does that mean the demise of the legacy market? Thoughts?
Not necessarily.
Not at all. Never.
That's why I exist at the moment. These ROs aren't putting out product good enough to operate and flush out the black market. There's a lot of brands coming up like me who are putting out great product, and there's a lot of products sitting on medical dispensary shelves that's not moving.
Wow. Vi, thoughts?
Well, in Illinois, what we've seen is not only just bad product, but we've seen within the legal market, if you will, we've seen bad working standards, and we've also seen those of us that have been in the legacy market and who are black and brown that have been left out of the culture and the industry that we created. So when you're asking, is the legacy market gonna stay around? It started there. It will always be there, and our goal is to make sure that it rises above what this industry is trying to create because it's monopolized already. when you're looking at the taxes and where the taxes go,
Mhm.
in Illinois, it just goes back to the communities, to the police department, to the government, and it doesn't trickle down to the people that were actually affected by the war on drugs.
Absolutely.
And that's the bad part of it. So the community doesn't even want to support something like that. The people that go to that go to these dispensaries, that go to the retail shops, they're going just because it's something that's a fad. It's cool to do. It's new. But once they get there and they see the high prices, they see the bad product, they're like, why am I going here? Let me just have a relationship with somebody that I know in my community. And that's what we're trying to push, is reestablishing the relationship with your neighborhood healer. Because it's not your neighborhood dealer. That's what the government put out there. So that they could coin and take over an industry for capitalistic endeavors.
Gotcha. Anna?
There's a 40 to 60% turnover rate in employing, working in the industry. And it's because people go in wanting to help people and they realize that they're just a cashier. And that's not what their intention was. That's not what it should be. But for some reason, they set up this industry to have a dispensary. And it doesn't work. It's not meant to. It's cannabis is meant to be. You have awesome growers that then either deal with their clients. But in my experience, most growers don't want to deal with clients. You have like the person who communicates with the client, who figures out what they need for their personal healing growth, and then they check in sporadically and figure out, healing is I'm also a massage therapist.
Nice.
I'm from the arts. Vi and I are both theater people too, and so healing and guys, I also did Taekwondo when I was a kid, and I've done Krav Maga, and the thing that we're lacking as a society is that healing aspect. And Vi pushes it more than me, but I agree with her that recreational is some BS. Everyone uses cannabis in some kind of medical form, whether they want to believe it or not. Like everyone's using PTSD, insomnia, pain.
Everyone has some type of trauma at the end of the day.
There it is. You nailed it on the head. We live in a world of oppression, and because of it, we are all living in trauma. And everybody is self-medicating, whether they want to admit it or not. And recreational cannabis or recreational medicinal wellness was only created for capitalistic endeavors. It is not something that we need to continue to play into, because that's what creates the monopolization. That's what creates the mass incarceration. That's what creates us in the legacy market that are not able to actually have a free market with great medicinal care and wellness that we're able to utilize as a community. I am somebody that hates recreation. I hate the term of it. Since it's been established, what we've seen is nothing but bad operation, bad product, bad organization, capitalistic endeavors. If you just really look at recreation as a whole, it's just a no all the way around in every state. And we're here to hopefully get the states that don't even have medical programs at this point to understand what they're facing and what they're up against, because the rollout is going to be the same that Illinois did. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to tell y'all that, but that's the reality. That's the truth. And so you have to jump in front of it before it gets there, and utilize your voice as people.
So Vi, I want to go back, because as you said, definitely a fad, possibly a passing fad. I don't know. But certainly my wife had gone up to Massachusetts. And as we know, we have, quote unquote, the adult use already out there. They have some beautiful dispensaries. They have all the lights, bells, and whistles. So you love that initial experience. Right. So I can't comment because I don't know really the market in terms of the price point. But now they do have folks who work there who may know the product and can explain. So my question would be to you guys in terms of the legacy market. You know your product. Are you good, as they say, sommeliers in terms of explaining the benefits and what to look for in terms of the product that they get from you guys? Tell me.
Do you think they knew how to figure it out? Like there are legacy people that did start working for these companies and then they taught the industry all of what they knew. That's what's so frustrating about it too, is because they come in claiming to want to help you, giving you an opportunity, and then they just steal all of your information. And then when you have something to say about it, or have something to say about the money that's not actually going back to the communities that should be served, they just fire you. So that's a huge unionization step happening right now in Illinois. And I have mixed feelings about unions in general, but ultimately people were getting fired for literally no reason.
Wow.
And they also put in contracts that if you've worked for certain companies, you can't work for other companies in the same industry for up to a year.
Wow.
So they're literally taking jobs away from legacy. You know, the bud boys who go up and down the train who used to sell grams, they have to find other means of making money because they probably have some kind of record, so they can't get a regular job. So they were making money through selling bud. Now bud is legal, so they're not making money that way. So there's more violence on the street. So they try to go and work for these companies, and they ultimately get screwed over again.
Wow. So, gentlemen, Chi-Town, you heard that, violence and whatnot. But you guys, you know your plant, you know your bud. Tell me what you guys see for your future in terms of you guys doing what you do.
Well, at the moment, we're not waiting, right? I've been educating people. I have a Discord channel where all my members communicate with each other on their experiences on strains that they've tried from us. So it's a good way for our customers or client base to look at other people and say, hey, you know what? It did this for them. Maybe it can do it for me. And at the same time, we try to educate people on strains. So we're producing our own strains that we're breeding ourselves with different hybrids that I've personally liked from around the country, from different breeders. We have strains that are sativa types that are more for people that don't struggle with anxiety. Right? You get a real strong sativa, it might heighten your anxiety even more. So we try to tell people, if you suffer from anxiety, try to stay away from these and try to go more along the lines of these. You know, bring you down, level you out, mellow you out. You have some people that have trouble getting up. So those types are a lot better for those type of people. So I breed strains currently, and I'm not waiting for legalization to provide this to people. I'm doing it now. And I'm breeding strains depending on what people need.
We've also Berimbolo that we just released too, which was 3-to-1 THC CBD strain.
Yeah, so it's not all about getting high fast.
Yeah.
How many different strains would you guys say you have right now?
I have about 20 to 30 strains that I've bred myself so far. And at the moment, we're actually growing out about 6 of them to start R&Ding, picking phenotypes and strains that would vibe with my client base.
Beautiful. So let's say, and all of you guys, so there's some folks that say, I don't want to vape, I don't want to smoke, I don't want the flower.
I have a lot of people that hit me up and say, hey, you know, I tried it and it made me really like anxious and it like, but you know, it's different person to person. Like I have my partner Ozzy who will smoke a strain and he's like, nah, don't do it for me. And then I'll smoke it. I'm like, yeah, that should put me out. So I feel like,
and that's the thing.
Everybody's systems are different. Right? Everybody's endocannabinoid responds differently to different strains that they put into their bodies, and
it also depends on what kind of other medications they're on as well. Yeah. So
it also affects if you're antidepressants.
Their whole life they're going to react to cannabis differently, and they're going to need different kinds of strains. And people also adapt to the strains that they're currently using.
variations
You gotta mix
very
it up.
important. Yeah,
You got to mix it up. Yep, for sure.
And
have
most people
people
don't even realize and understand that your body has a natural endocannabinoid system as already.
Absolutely.
That's why it naturally incorporates within your body. And your question to people that don't want to smoke, that don't want to vape, and all those types of things. You know, I'm really big into topicals, into uh, uh,
edibles,
well, edibles, but also into
tinctures.
tinctures.
Yeah,
Tinctures are very important. You know what I'm saying? Because for people that need the wellness, that need it for a medicinal purpose. Sorry, my phone is gonna die. That's needed for a medicinal purpose. Vaping, it's smoking. That's just one aspect, one vehicle, as well as far as ingesting goes. There are multiple different ways that you can ingest the plant. The plant is here not only to sustain a whole economy, but it's also here for your health and wellness needs as well.
Can we talk about vapes for a second? Because I personally don't like vapes. I don't think that we've seen long-term studies on what vapes can potentially do to us. And vapes were also a legal product, you know. So I'm super old school. Like, I will just smoke a joint and I'll make my own edibles, and I know how to dose myself and what I need to sleep, and I have inflammatory disease as well, so I use it for inflammation. And I hear from a lot of people, well, I just use a vape because, you know, it's convenient and it doesn't smell and I can travel with it. That's not the point of cannabis. Cannabis is supposed to help heal. And I'm worried that the legal market, having put in this new vape product that everyone is so focused on, and like, I don't know if you know this group, SAM, they are completely against cannabis. And specifically they have people that say that they like had a psychotic break because of vaping all the time. Wow. And so I don't know.
Well, it's a man-made vehicle that has yet to actually be looked at and approved by the FDA, which is another governmental, entity. But there's been a lot of issues with vaping as a whole, because you don't really know all the components that are inside of your vape. In addition to, now you have these large conglomerate cannabis companies that are pushing radiation on plants. Who wants radiation on their plants? Not to mention that Big Pharma is now trying to put opioids into the plant as well. So when people talk to me about going to the dispensary, I'm like, why? Do your education, because and if you don't know and you come and talk to me, I'm definitely going to give you a boatload. I stop people on the street, and I both, because it's a lot of misinformation. It's a lot of disinformation. The propaganda of why cannabis is quote unquote bad has been going on since the 60s. You know what I'm saying?
No, since the 30s.
There it is. And so we actually have to put out the proper, truthful propaganda to our community so that people understand and they go
education.
back to patient care and to making sure that they have a community healer, not a dealer.
Absolutely.
And this also not completely against talk about one of the narratives that they've been trying to push is and I appreciate what you were saying before about not liking the term recreational, because what they're trying to do is make legal adult cannabis the equivalent of alcohol or tobacco or gambling, a so-called legal sin that you have a right to. And it completely ignores the history of cannabis, which for 5,000 years has been used for health purposes. And it wasn't until the 30s when it got weaponized that we even had an issue about using it for health purposes. So we're going back to that now, but we also have to remember adult use, it's a great thing that we have it, but it was still driven by health concerns. Yes. We wouldn't have no legal cannabis if it wasn't for veterans, if it wasn't for mothers of kids with autism, if it wasn't for cancer patients. people who use the product for health purposes and had astounding results vis-a-vis the alternatives they had in kind of the pharma system. And so we have to make sure that we pull that health aspect, because there's been research to say that even people who are using it for so-called quote unquote recreational, they're usually using it for a health purpose as well, whether it be reduction of stress, anxiety, pain relief. All these things are real factors in people's lives, and why they use cannabis, and why they become connected to the plant. Because that is the other thing is that we see is that the people who are really pushing this industry forward are what I call friends of the plant. And we want people to understand what that is and why that is. And that's the way that we can onboard more people into different types of products that they might prefer. A lot of people don't like smoke. I have a wife who does not like smoke, but has no issue with teas, tinctures, edibles. And so I think we're in this unique position where I'm a little bit more optimistic about New York, only because we've done a few things and we've learned from states like Illinois about what has happened, and then we do have some people in the position in our cannabis infrastructure, if you will, statewide, that we know them and we know what their intentions are. And it doesn't mean we don't have to still be vigilant, but I think we have a fighter's chance of getting a better program than we've seen so far in other states.
I'm still keeping my hopes up on that for sure, Bob. That's from what I've seen so far, and from what New York has been saying, right? They haven't proven me to think otherwise yet, you know. So we're keeping our hopes up, and at the end of the day, I think the whole world is watching New York, you know, to try to set the standard here.
Right.
So that's the bigger picture of it all too, including federal legalization at the end of the day.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you guys on the show is that I feel like the narrative about legacy growers really needs to be expanded.
So we can definitely touch on that. Yeah.
And one of the things that you in particular, Matt, when I had a chance to hear you at Harlem Business Alliance, and there's something you said that really let me know where you were coming from when you were talking about how you had a crop, if you will, that had mold in it, and you had to throw the whole crop away because you would never sell moldy weed to anyone.
Yeah,
and it was like, these are our people. These are the ones. They don't need to be told. They don't need an FDA regulation to tell them not to sell bad weed.
We're good people. We're authentic people at the end of the day, right?
We love the plant, like you said. We're friends of the plant.
Exactly.
And we love the community too, so we ain't gonna try to harm them at the end.
Right. And any move toward legalization, there has to be an on-ramp for people like you to be able to participate and not be in the shadows and be able to run your business like it should, and certainly have as much right to entry into this marketplace as these big companies that don't know how to grow but have raised a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. I think it starts with a voice, right? So what we're doing is we've recently teamed up over the past couple of weeks with Legacy Growers Association of New York, which our friend Josh Waterman started upstate New York. And we're going to be forming a few different chapters throughout the state. We have Central New York forming right now, and the city forming as well. And it's going to be, the goal strictly is going to be to get as many legacy growers from throughout the state to join. We actually have our first meetup August 13th here in White Plains. All growers are going to be invited from throughout the state. We're going to be streaming it via Zoom as well. And I'm happy to say that the response has been overwhelming. We actually yesterday we put the tickets out online for the event for free, by the way, and 150 got sold out within 6 hours maybe.
Wow, that's great.
So we're trying to get that formation of legacy growers together, and then from there have that voice to start really going there. You know, I feel like we're a little late, so we have a lot of work to do and catch up. You know.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So Night Watchman, certainly whatnot that we hear with what's happening in terms of the legalization. It is, as you say, you say that you're very hopeful. You do, guys. You also say you're hopeful of what you're seeing.
Yeah, for now.
Ideally, what would your hope be in terms of the market opening up here?
So we're coming in as a social equity applicant at the end of the day, right? So our company is set up as we're 51% minority ownership by Kolector here, and our other partner
CFO.
Marcus, or CFO Marcus, who's African American. So we're minority owned. We're disabled veteran owned through Kolector as well. 10% employee owned company, right? So 10% of our profits at the end of the year get dispersed amongst the entire staff. And then we're also legacy growers at the end of the day.
And we also want to operate in the communities that have been hardest by the war on drugs.
Yeah, which and to the point of legacy too, we still don't know if we're even considered, if we're even in the eyes, or if OCM even knows what legacy is, right? At the end of the day. So
OCM has yet to define it, and OCM has yet to even put out any type of information saying that will be prioritized at all.
So we on our end have to be in a position to pivot, right? Because the regs haven't come out yet, but we obviously we talk every day about this, but we need to have option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in place so that once those regs come out, we know, all right, boom, we're taking option 3, we're going this route, you know.
And framing it after the medical program is not a way to get legacy into the market, right? We had a $10,000 application fee, $250,000 for the actual license, and you had to have already had the property. It doesn't. A lot of legacy operators won't be able to do that.
Cost prohibitive, huh?
Say again?
That's the market industry, period. Unfortunately, I hear you guys talking about your hopes for New York, and I have high hopes for New York as well. Unfortunately, when you see the police that are actually taking away legacy entrepreneurs in their transportation vehicles, you guys food trucks, if you will, and because they don't have a quote unquote license, you know, that lessens my hope for New York. When I see the rollout and how it is that legally on paper, New York sounds great. But when it comes down to what's actually happening within the community, they're failing. When you're looking at, the regulations when it comes down to housing, if you're in public housing and you need medical cannabis, then now you lose your public housing. So for me, I have, unfortunately, the federal government really has to step in at this point, and they don't want to because they want to put it back to the states so that the states have statutory legalities into making sure that their state and their jurisdiction handles the cannabis law and regulation, if you will. Unfortunately, the federal government does actually have to step in. This MORE Act that's going to cover all the states is a shamble as well. So we really have to band together as advocates, as real advocates, to care about the wellness and the medicinal care that is coming out for cannabis, and unify so that our voices can be uplifted. The power is within the people. I can't express that enough. And unfortunately, what we see is a lot of advocates that end up moving away from the process and the protocols on how it should roll out within the states because they care about a license. For me, it's bigger than a license. This is about our generations of people that are going to need medicinal wellness. And if we don't stop where we are and get it right, we're gonna look back and it's just gonna be something, as we've been saying, that's gonna be like big pharma, big tobacco, or the alcohol industry.
So Vi, do tell. I mean, so in my lifetime, federal legalization?
I'm going to go with no, because
wow. Okay.
The only reason why I say that is because at this point, the federal government is again looking at individual states to be responsible, and there's no accountability for anybody. And right now, what we see in regulation is not real regulation. What it's restriction. Regulation equals restriction, and restriction to those of us that have been a part of the war on drugs, that are veterans. I'm a veteran too. That are veterans, that and other people in the legacy industry and the traditional market that have been left out and removed from access to generational wealth. And then you have the people that are within it who think that generational wealth is opening up one retail shop. But that's money that is in order to even open up one store. It's not creating generational wealth. It's just it isn't.
Well, and then it's the people too that are just trying to win a license to then sell their license. And that's generational wealth.
And not sell it to people that are again are within the community that have been actually inflicted and affected by the war on drugs or the traditional market. They're selling it to Verano and or selling it to GTI, and they're doing it through their counterparts because their names are different. They know how to play the game. We're the ones who don't understand the game.
I think. Listen, I think at the end of the day, you also unfortunately can't control human nature, right? So you're going to get a lot of people who are just going to sell out for the quick dollar and the short end of it. But on us, and what V said is like is about education, and we also at the end of the day choose who we support. You know.
Yes.
So I think it's advocacy, education, and putting the message on who our people should be supporting, and who we should be supporting out there at the end of the day.
That's the unity. That's the unity that they want to miss, and they want to separate from within the culture, right? The culture has to be the one that actually shine up above what the industry is doing. But that does require us to unify, to work together, and that hasn't been something that's been done when you look at the history of revolution and the history of people that have been oppressed, right? That's one of the reasons why oppression works, because it has segregation. It has separation. That we unify and that we link together and that we're actually sharing each other's businesses. And
that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Yep.
Yes. And you know what? Funny enough, I remember in NightWatchman, correct me if I'm wrong, but in one of our early discussions revolving around cannabis, and I remember someone getting up specifically and saying that in terms of the pushback that they had observed, especially in Black and brown communities, let's say the church, the Christian community. So when you talk about education, guys, I'm putting it out there. Have you been successful in actually convincing some of those old heads about the benefits of cannabis?
Yeah, I think it's a generational thing
that are eating.
Hold on, one at a time. Who wants to go first? Go ahead.
Yeah, Anna, go ahead. Do your thing, Anna.
Go ahead.
I was just.
Go ahead, Anna. I got you.
I was just gonna say, there's so many people in the church that are eating edibles. Like,
so they won't smoke. They won't smoke a vape, but edibles.
Yeah,
yes.
like edibles. But and then I was gonna suggest to Matt, your team, since you're crunching numbers and trying to figure out how to make your legal company work, please put in their money for pursuing the crap out of the state. Because
we have a hefty legal fee.
I would preemptively do it, honestly.
Yeah, we have a hefty legal fee in our business plan.
Right.
Nice. What about you,
I
Bob?
think
go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Back to like the church and stuff. Those type of people, there's still a huge stigma around cannabis, right? It's not everybody's not completely sold on the health and wellness parts of it. We still have our grandparents and even our parents that are like, I don't know. I still think of it as a drug, you know, but I think it comes to us or showing them education, right? And all these other avenues of consumption, like V was talking about, tinctures. Also, vape carts are one of the biggest ways that a lot of these old heads are getting into it, right? Because it comes back like they remember being a child with this crazy smelling streets of cannabis, you know, like a lot of people might want to consume and might fear judgment from people around them.
Right.
I think that's what it comes down to. I think most people are okay with it, but are afraid of what other people are going to think of them. Which
I think the vape, the tinctures, the edibles are a way for those people to kind of get introduced to the plant. And there's a lot of people who are doing really innovative and great vape cartridges now. It's not all metal-based vape cartridges anymore. A lot of stuff that I've seen my personal friends open up legacy brands are actually using like solventless extracts in their vape cartridges now. They're using ceramic as opposed to metals.
Gotcha.
So I think it's just coming down to like innovation and technology, right? Being able to make these processes more healthy. And at the end of the day, Anna, I completely understand what you're saying. And me and Matt talk about this all the time. We're going to be looked at dinosaurs in 10 years that still smoke, smoke joints. You know what I mean? Everyone else coming up is going to be like, yo, you
guys still smoking a blunt? Jesus,
you still smoking flower? Like, what's going on here? You know? But I think it comes
sad to me. That's so sad to me, because you're right. There are like, you know, there's a 10 to 20 year period now where all of the kids that weren't legally allowed to smoke until they were 21 got, you know, started doing it when they were 21, and now they're 31 or 36, and they know nothing about the culture before legalization. Right. And there was something that was really important about the culture when it was underground, because it wasn't ran by the man, and it came out from a natural place.
And the way we're trying to organize our company at the end of the day is how we think it should authentically be done from the underground coming out at the end of the day. You know? Trying to get a out for it.
I hope you get a license. I really do.
Well, OCM, we went to a public license. We went to a panel discussion with
I swear to God,
a few other members, and
because
they don't want to limit licenses.
Well, I mean, within the community, we actually have to show what it looks like from legacy to legal. And for me, I don't believe that is regulated by any license. I think that we as legacy people can actually show what it looks like to be real entrepreneurs and not be in fear of the law. The law has never been on our side for people that have been oppressed. It will never be on our side, but that's a mentality type of thing. And in order to change that, you have to show that, and you have to allow your words to replicate in your actions. When you're talking about the religious people, that's one of the things in Illinois and in Chicago that we've tried a lot, is to talk to a lot of pastors and to get them on board with talking to their congregation. Because when you look at it, a lot of people that are there are the baby boomers, if you will. They're the elders, and the elder community is another oppressed community that doesn't have good health care, that doesn't have good wellness when it comes to looking at their economic resources or anything like that. And so they're utilizing cannabis. They're just not talking about it, right? They're being quiet about how it is that they're using it. And if they feel taboo about it, I mean, think about cigarettes. For the longest time, my grandmother smoked cigarettes multiple times. She's quit multiple times. But when I bring her, you know, some cannabis, and it's like, oh baby, and I'm like, well, I got it for you topically. About her ailments, and then that hits them, right? And so we just have to be willing, as you guys said, with the technologies that are coming out, and really changing the mindset and changing the propaganda that's put out there. We have to create new propaganda that actually talks about the health benefits of it versus what Killinger, of everything that was untruth.
Kachmar.
Gotcha.
So Vi, you can cash app me that $1,000. We actually have to start wrapping up, not because you guys are dropping the bombs, but because you've been dropping the real thought bombs.
Yes.
But our time has come just about to a close. But we're going to give you guys a chance to just give us some final statements, and then we're going to wrap up and head out of here. So I'm going to let Anna have the first crack at this.
All right. So I've been holding this in. I hate how the industry is compared to alcohol, tobacco, and gambling. I don't do any of those three, so I'm a little biased. But in my personal opinion, all three of those things kill people and make them feel like crap. Where cannabis cures cancer potentially for some people, and you know, it should not be compared to those industries at all, in my opinion. Free the plant, free the people, and I'm gonna wrap it up.
Thank you.
Vi, you're up.
I piggyback off of Free the Plant, Free the People. As long as we have people that are mass incarcerated in regards to cannabis, while we have billionaires that are making continuous billions off of this plant and this culture, we definitely have to make sure that freeing the people and freeing the plant is at our helm. I would also add that we have to unify and band together, and strength is in the power of the people. We have to utilize our voices and talk about, and shows like you guys have, the Watchmen that are here. I thank you guys for actually having the show and being willing to put the truth that's out there and talk to other entrepreneurs, advocates, people in the legacy market that are doing good work, good business, good healing that is out there. If you're in a state that doesn't have medicinal care or medical or recreation, I would say get in touch with us, True Social Equity and Cannabis. Get in touch with other advocates that are out there, because it is about unifying our voices and making sure that we tell the federal government that this is something that's necessary. This is something that is needed, and that we band together and that we unify. So thank you guys again for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gentlemen.
Matt and Kolector, take it home.
Yeah, I'll start with I'm going to use my time, since I have the platform, in case anyone from OCM or the New York State is watching, to put a push on, if any of these large corporate MSOs are coming into the state and lobbying to have restrictions on light counts. They are doing it because they're scared of urban grows and indoor grows, because they know we grow better weed than anyone, right? So if you limit light counts, you directly limit urban grows, and you directly affect the people who are started with this all in the first place, right? So that needs to be highly looked at and made sure that there's no restriction on indoor grow lights.
And piggybacking off of what V said, we're creating unity in our community right now. August 13th, we have a growers meetup where we have over 150 growers from New York State alone, just linking up to swap seeds and genetics and talk about the plant, and actually have a conversation about our own legacy cannabis cups that we're going to do in December and January. Nice. So we're actively at the moment collectively collecting all the local legacy growers in the state to get together and have these conversations.
Beautiful.
Trying to lead the charge for legacy at the end of the day.
Yep.
NightWatchman.
I get the last word.
Yes,
First of all, thank you guys all so much for coming on this show.
Yes.
I've got 3 things to say. Follow the health. That's what got us medical cannabis, and that's what will finally get us the industry that we want to see at the end of the day. Stay involved with local, state, and federal politics, because we have to keep the pressure on, and that's also what got us as far as we've gotten us. And just keep working together. I'm so glad to have Illinois and New York cross-pollinating right here, sharing ideas, sharing experiences, so that we can move together collectively. We will continue in this manner. You've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. If you're on those channels, like, subscribe, hit those buttons, and join us. You can always find us on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. on the radio and 8 o'clock streaming live. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you